making sure that you truly understand the candidate profile that you desire. Think 10 years in advance for where you want your company to be, not the right now. And if you can't foresee being married to people, whether your franchise agreement is 5, 10, or 15 years down the road, then they're probably not the right profile to have into your system. And it's okay to say no. So I think most people know that, but I guess encourage them that it's okay, right? Because it's just going to set you up for better long-term success.
Welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by NetCertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. NetCertive's Madeline Park talked shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art of Franchise Marketing. I'm your host, Madeline Zook, and today we've got Drew McWilliams, the founder, or I should say co-founder and president of Ivy Brook Academy. Drew, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be with you and talk with you today.
So Ivy Brook Academy is funny because it's come up a lot recently in my neighborhood because we all have younger kids, and there was a conversation that came up was like, oh, have you heard of Ivy Brook? What about this? What about that? And I was like, actually, I have, and here's the rundown, and I have a podcast with them soon. So you've been the talk of the block, we like to say. But before that, Drew, tell us who you are, how'd you get into franchising, and then, what your current role is now.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I appreciate you spreading that through the neighborhood. So I'll be sure to send Ivy Brook t-shirts and teddy bears and magnets all through your community.
We love swag in this
absolutely. House. Ivy Brook magnets all over the wagons being pulled around the community. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Drew McWilliams. My wife and I are the founders of Ivy Brook Academy, which is a children's preschool. Specifically, our niche is in the half-day preschool business, which we'll kind of unpack and dive into later. But just to give you a little bit of color and background on who I am, my wife and I are college sweethearts. So we were both resident assistants in the same dorm hall. That's how we met. So I guess we were deemed as somewhat being responsible at a young age for overseeing other adolescents.
Yeah, I was the opposite of that.
total opposite. Definitely still in the babysitting realm. There's no doubt. Those college students, those freshmen. Little different in the preschool world, but that's how we met. We met in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. After we graduated college, we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where we reside and where I now call home. Been here for over 20 some years now. So this is very much our home. Opened up Ivy Brook Academy after I had a very successful career in real estate and still in real estate a lot to this day. Do a lot of real estate and investing as kind of a second career. And my wife was a first grade teacher, and we decided to come together and marry both of our interests and desires. And I always had an entrepreneurship gene, and she was a first grade teacher, and Ivy Brook Academy was spun out on our honeymoon. So I have been happily married to my beautiful wife for 19 years, and Ivy Brook Academy has been in our minds for 19 years. And today, as we speak, we have just entered our 17th year open in business, which is very, very exciting to have this conversation with you on that anniversary date.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we'll have to do some, anniversary PR around that. So wait, I love that you said that it came out of your honeymoon, because my husband and I joke, no more brands, no more kids, because we own 4 brands, or we're franchisees of 4 brands. We've got 3 kids, and every year there seems to be another one on each of the sectors. So it seems very similar to you, where you're on your honeymoon, supposed to be relaxing. You're like, here's a franchise concept. Here's a business concept. Let's do it. So talk to me about Ivy Brook Academy. I know it's, the half day preschool. What was your initial thoughts behind that? Why create it? Why, do it? Because it seems like you both were very successful already. So, why risk it and create something out of nothing?
Yeah, and my line for that answer, and I'll tell you more, is I listen to a ton of podcasts like yours,
Hmm.
and one of my favorite podcasts is one called EO Fire. A lot of entrepreneurs on that one, and the host on that show always says the riches are in the niches, and a half day preschool is certainly a niche. Everybody knows what a daycare is, they know what a preschool is, but nobody knows what a half day preschool is.
Right.
So it is certainly a niche. Why that came up is as we originally thought it was a phenomenon in Charlotte, but half day preschools are typically associated with churches and religious based facilities
Sure.
that they're using the facilities on the weekend, but Monday through Friday, they need to find a place or they need to find something to do with the building that they have built. So they develop, a half day preschool. It's typically religious in nature. They're coloring dittos and worksheets. It's great, great option, for the community. We just decided that there was such a big wait list, especially where we live in Charlotte. If we just opened up a half day preschool and just took their wait list, we would be profitable. Just their wait list, not even took their business.
Sure.
But we decided to put a curriculum on it, not just sing songs and do worksheets and dittos, but children are learning to read, write their numbers, their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and also the social component. If you send a child to kindergarten or first grade and tell them to go stand in line, and if they've never been to a preschool before, they don't know what that means. Like just those small little cues like that. And that's how Ivy Brook Academy was developed. So we saw the need, there's demand, right? And just like you, I get into businesses where I can see the demand. I can put myself in the consumer's shoes. And
Hmm.
if I can solve a problem, I want to open that business. And Ivy Brook definitely fills that um, bucket by filling the demand that the community needs. It's not out there. And we have had the very, very fortunate ability to be able to scale this. As of yesterday, we just signed our 80th franchise agreement. And I just had my kickoff call with them an hour ago before our conversation. So super exciting. There's a lot of big milestones and anniversaries going on today on our call. So it's been a very rewarding journey. We've been in business for 17 years. The first 10 years, we just ran 2 brick and mortar schools. Never heard of franchising. Thought
Hmm.
franchising was for all the big boys like McDonald's and the food industries. Never realized it really affects so much that we work with, and on a daily and a weekly basis across our country. And we've been franchising now for 7 years. So we kind of crawled, walk, and kind of now run approach for our scalability.
Yeah, and I like what you said about, riches are in the niches because a lot of what we were hearing as, just a parent in the neighborhood is, well, I have to pay all this money and I have to send them full time and it's full days, but my kid is still taking a 3 hour nap in the afternoon and I get
That's
home
right.
from work. So then, I want to see them and I don't really want to pay to have them be napping for 3 hours at school. It's going to change. So, there definitely is something to be said for what you mentioned as well as taking that wait list. If I just take the wait list, it'll be fine.
That's right.
So talk to me a little bit more about the childcare industry because I'm sure it's very foreign, myself included on the business end, to a lot of people. So what does it take when you're like, hey, we're going to open a business slash franchise and we're going to deal with probably the most delicate parts of society, which are people's children?
Yeah. Not only the most delicate, the most important. It is the
Right.
single most important thing that I am responsible for in life for my 11 and my 13-year-old child right now, right? Who
Mhm.
equally were, of course, Ivy Brook Academy graduates. Um, that's why they're succeeding in life, right? As 11 and 13-year-old right now. As a little bit of a
Obviously.
sidebar, obviously. Um, yeah, it is the great thing about what we do. Yes, we're dealing with people's most precious thing that they have in their life. There is no doubt about that. So how do you effectively train franchise owners? We don't call them franchisees in my company. They're franchise owners because they own their own company, and also the staff, right? It all really comes down to recruiting, and
Mhm.
we on both sides, on the franchise owner side, we say no to applicants just as often as we say yes to people. So we are very intentional with who we want as franchisees. I'm celebrating, we have 80 locations awarded. I could easily have 180 locations awarded in the same time frame. Easily. There's no doubt about that. But we're very intentional with our growth. We're very intentional with our candidates, who we have, I'll call it like-minded. Now, we're a very diverse group as far as backgrounds, but we're all like-minded in how we want to have relationships with parents, the community, and with children. And that has to ring true, because franchise owners, franchisees, they're about to get into a 15-year relationship. I'm about to get married to somebody for 15 years. We better make sure we like each other. I just don't want someone that has the ability to write a check. That's not a good winning relationship. And then if you get that in place first, people with, the right mind, and the right heart. And we have a very big saying: if your heart and your mind aren't aligned, then you shouldn't move forward and buy a franchise from Ivy Brook. That is a very, very strong thing that we say, and a very strong component we have. When we have those right people in the right seats, then we can find the right caliber employees and the right staff. We call them educators because they're truly educating children. So every industry has a little bit of different buzzwords. Those are definitely some buzzwords that I threw out there. It is very easy for things to fall in place if you get the right step forward first.
So I love this because the reason I created the podcast is I want to see trends that are working. And one of the trends, which you and it makes sense, but for our listeners, one of the trends that they can see over the last 10, 20 podcasts are slow growth and making sure that you're bringing on the right people. And I would like you to explain your thought process behind that, because I think that there's a lot of buzz around, we signed 100 units, we're getting over this, we're getting over that. And sure, that sounds great, but you were able to functionally scale both aspects of your wants, because you were like, we need to open, Ivy Brook Academy. We can take the wait list and make money immediately. Great. People also take that same mindset into franchise development. People are going to want to buy these. We're going to make so much money immediately. You clearly have done it the correct way, where you're like, nope, I don't care about, how much money we could make by selling one to everyone. We need to play the long game. So what was your thought process around that, especially going into franchising, knowing you had a proven model and people that, quite frankly, will wave checks in your face?
Yeah. And it's hard, especially getting started. The very first person that applied, we denied them, and they put a check on the table in front of us. We didn't sell one franchise yet, and somebody tried to write us a check for $50,000, and we said no. That was the hardest. That was by far the hardest no, because you want to stay in business, right? You want to make sure that you continue to grow. I am so thankful that we did, and we held to our roots, and then we held to our mission of making sure that we found the right people from day one, and that hasn't wavered. Was it hard? Absolutely, and it was. Looking back on it 7 years now, I'm so thankful we did, because it might have shifted the whole mindset of the company of where we're at right now.
Right.
As far as why did we decide to go kind of the slower route? Now, initially we just wanted to stay, I'll call it inside the Carolinas. If you're not from North or South Carolina, we very much consider ourselves one state if you're a local. I'm not a local, but
I'm driving down there on Saturday. We're going to OBX. It's like an 8-hour drive, but I'll be in the Carolinas.
I love me some Outer Banks. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I got to get some of that saltwater taffy. That's what they're known for out there in OBX.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we stayed in the Carolinas. Okay, that was kind of our crawl approach. Hey, let's just make sure this franchising thing works. Let's stay in the Carolinas. And then we're like, well, let's go to bordering states. Okay, and then let's stay on the East Coast. And then, okay, now we feel comfortable to hit the national button. The reason why we did that is I think it was a little bit of imposter syndrome. We didn't know if we could do it or not. And God bless our first 3 franchisees. Every time I see them, I continually say, man, we didn't know what we were doing. Like, I am just so sorry. Like, I know so much more after 7 years about how to be a franchisor. And thank God they are my three best rock stars in the entire company. I mean, they are all over it. As far as revenue, their customer service, their enrollment. I mean, we just poured into them. I mean, we just poured time and love and energy into them, and they were successful. I mean, it was them. It was them. But our approach was, go slow because we don't know what we're doing. And I'll be the first to admit, if I don't know what I don't know. That's kind of one of my other favorite taglines. But also, we equally, as my wife and I, our oldest child is 13, our business is 17 years old. We equally, as having young children in the household, I didn't want to have 500 locations and be flying to, California and Nevada and Washington State. I'm never going to see my children. And the reason why we got into entrepreneurship is to have a better work-life balance. And our schools close at 4:30. Okay. Everywhere across the country, they're done. Our franchise owners love that. Now, franchisors don't close at 4:30. I can promise you that.
That I do know.
Maybe 4:30 a.m. will close. We kind of work a lot, but it's the quality of life. So we've grown intentionally with the right people to ensure that selfishly, myself and my amazing, amazing franchisor team still has that quality of life balance too.
I love when you were like, no, they put a $50,000 check in front of me and I had to say no. I feel like this should be like the test. It's kind of like the cookie test where you tell the kid, like, don't touch the cookie and I'm going to leave the room. That should be the baseline test of someone could be a franchisor, is you put like $50,000 in front of them and a terrible candidate. And then you're like, don't touch it until I come back.
I will bet 8 out of 10 franchisors make the wrong decision and take the check.
100%. And it's sad because sometimes, like, I'm known for being very frank, where I'm like, they'll be like, Maddie, we sold 300 units and we're only 6 months old. And I was like, you're gonna die.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
It's not good. It's not good. But
I love analogies. And I think that one would be, I think they're getting over their skis, right?
Their skis for sure. And sure enough, it happened. They called me and they're like, oh, what do we do? And I was like, well, not my monkey, not my circus. But
you better hire about 30 franchise staff tomorrow.
Exactly. Now, talk to me about, for the candidates you do say yes to. In franchise, we talk a lot about, you don't have to be a professional plumber to own a plumbing business. But I think with kids, it's a little different. I think you can't just open an Ivybrook and say, I don't like kids, but I see this model and I'll hire people who do. What is that like for you? Because like I said, sure, you don't have to be a skilled craftsman per se. You don't have to be a, whatever certified teacher. But I think with this industry, there's more leniency towards the people that have the passion for educating and children. So is that something you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I think that was really well said. We really look for one of two different type of candidates, and absolutely, you just nailed one of them for sure. Someone that has been a former teacher, I'll even call it a daycare director. Somebody has been in the, I'll call it early to elementary childhood space. Bar down, they are the easiest person to train and onboard. I mean, they just get it. Like they get it from day one. Operations they get. The challenge then is I now have to teach you how to read a P&L. Okay. So that is a whole different mindset. And how my wife and I stay very happily married is she doesn't go in my lane and I don't go in hers, meaning she's never going to use QuickBooks. Not going to happen. At the same time, she is never going to ask me to teach a class as a teacher. It is not going to happen. Because all I want to do in there is I just want to go play with the kids. I'm going to wind them all up, get them all like excited, and then I'm going to wave goodbye and
cool dad.
No activities are going to get done. Okay, so that's one. Okay, the second successful franchisees that we have, they have complete 180 different. They are coming from the business world. They want to escape corporate America. I would say almost it's not a prerequisite, but 98%, that's a random number, 98% of my franchisees, they have kids. So they obviously like kids. I have 2 franchisees that just do not have children yet. Maybe they will. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But there's a high concentration of couples with children as franchisees, and it makes sense, right?
Right.
It resonates. They get it.
Mm-hmm.
But the business savvy person, I easily don't have to tell them how to read a P&L, right? They've got it, and then they've got the metrics almost too dialed in on my KPIs. Now, for those people, they're going to be like me, where they're not going to want to teach a class, they're not going to want to deal with operations. I immediately will tell them, even before they sign up, you need to understand your first hire is your counterpart that has an education background, and they need to be the principal of the school. I need both mindsets to make a school tick. You've got to have both. I've got to have the operations curriculum brain and education. I've got to have someone that has the business brain. A lot of the time it's a couple, like my wife and myself, that somebody has one skill set and the other.
Mm-hmm.
If it is an individual that purchases, they just need to understand that their first hire is their counterpart. So both mindsets have been extremely successful for us.
I love how you made that kind of lane in those verticals so clear, because it's so true that, some for the emerging brands that are listening here, a lot of times they try to find their first candidates that are mirrors of themselves, which, you have to talk to them about those different styles of owners. And then also your point of your first hire, because a lot of people just assume manager. They're either going to be good at everything or they're going to be just like me. And that's who we need to help run the business, because I need another me. And to your point, that's completely true. My husband and I, same thing. I tell him all the time, listen, I suck at a lot of things. I'm really bad at math. The other day he was like, oh, you remember 4 years ago? And I was like, oh, 2017. And he was like, Madeline, how bad at math are you? I was like, oh, my bad. But, I can do marketing for days. When it comes to operations, forget it. Same thing, QuickBooks, anything like that. So we know not to stay in each other's lanes, but that's kind of why it works, right?
Yep, for sure.
So with your concept, will you open someone that is just an owner that is basically promising to hire that other counterpart, or do they have to have someone in mind on board before you'll sign that FDD?
No, just a promise. Just a promise. Again, we've gone through so many screenings. Once they come to the decision-making time, we bring them to something called a discovery day, which some of your audience may or may not know. At that time we go through that, and it's just, if they've gotten to a discovery day, we've already kind of screened them to know that they're of a like-minded individual, and it's a trust component, and it hasn't backfired once. So we trust people that we know that they're going to hire that person, and we're going to help them find that person too. We're going to help screen and interview and talk to that person before that decision is made. So that's
awesome. No, I like that. And then, we're going to come up on time shortly, and I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I want to get into kind of the challenges. So how did you guys do during COVID? Because I had a preschooler. Well, I had 2 preschoolers in COVID, and we had a school that they did their best, but we were charged the full amount, and the school was closed. They'd have to shut down for 2 weeks if there was an exposure. And my kids ended up being home more than they were at school, still charged the full price. And they were saying, well, we're going to do virtual preschool. I was like, excuse me? I was like, what are you going to yell at the kid when they're about to turn the stove on when I'm in the other room, through the screen? So how did COVID fare for you? Because you guys got hit hard.
I know the industry got hit hard. It is a massive blessing our company did not. We were one of the few organizations that at the time was very, probably a little bit of a gamble. We elected to stay open, and I'm really glad we did. Everybody remembers certain dates and milestones. Sure. I will remember March 13th, Friday, March 13th. What a joke. That's a funny one, right? That's when it went down. And I remember having a large staff meeting on that day. And what we elected to do is we didn't know what was happening. So we switched to Zoom for the rest of that school year. Remember, we go in an academic year, not on a calendar year. So a little different. Right. So from March through the end of May, we figured this thing called Zoom out and virtual. And then we went we went back in person
Wow.
learning in the new school year. So, you know, different schools did different things from public to private.
Mhm.
We believe that in-person learning, especially at a young age, is what is best. I'm really glad we did that. We never closed one facility, and to this day, we have never closed a school across the country,
Wow.
anywhere across the country from
That's
a pandemic
incredible.
or any other related reason. So we're very fortunate, and that is a stat I'll brag about the no closure rate more than I'll brag about how many locations are awarded any day.
And that's, this is the reason why you're going to see Ivy Brook around for the next decades to come, because it's very rare for our, newer franchise listeners on here to have a zero closing rate. I don't care if you're new or not. I've seen a franchise open 4 months, close 5 locations. I've seen, the established that closed maybe a handful. To have a 0% closing rate is like hitting a bullseye with an arrow every single time, always. Like it's almost unheard of. And you pay a testament to that based on the patients, the qualification screening, um, and really making sure that you're leaning in to your processes and procedures. You're not just creating them to create it. Oh, it's good, it's going to work, but you're constantly making sure they are working, and you're working with your system to evolve and keep them going, so that happy franchisees don't close.
That's right.
The only closure you might see coming down the road is someone that says, I want to close it and I love it so much that I don't want anyone to take over it, which is not going to happen. But, happy franchisees stick with the brand. What other obstacles do you see in the child industry? Is it marketing? Is it employees? What are you seeing a lot of pushback? I own home services, and by far it's employees, finding those people that are going to work, that are going to stay around a long time. And it's just kind of a par for the course at this point.
Yeah, my head goes to two different routes right there. As far as the obstacles, I'll knock on wood. Employee retention is not a hard thing. I have a amazing staff. I still own our original campus. I was in there yesterday, doing pep talks and getting everybody ready for the new school year. Uh, I think I've had one turnover in the last 3 years at that staff. I mean, it is amazing. And I know, people could say, well, it's the flagship campus. It should be that way. I can't tell you how good of a environment not only our home location, but all of our franchise locations are making for their staff. If you make it an enjoyable environment where people love coming to work, which is rare, most people go to work to get a paycheck. If you're smiling and having fun with children and you're getting compensated above industry standard, why would you leave? I'm paying you more than the industry standard being the daycare industry. You're smiling, you're happy, you're done at 4:30. We're closed 32 work days per year. You have 32 vacation days the day you start. I mean, that's a pretty great environment. So that thankfully has been good, and we have a very low employee count. A full day daycare typically has 40 to 45 staff. Our max staff is 15.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So just think as an employer, would you rather manage 15 or 45 people? This is
Right.
a no-brainer right now, right? Like the children are never the ones that need the most help. I feel like it's always the employees that need the most help sometimes,
Sure.
right? So,
Yeah.
which is part of the coaching and the process that I love to give. So, that's the employer standpoint. As far as new things in the industry coming down the pike, a lot of states are slowly starting to talk about preschool vouchers. So the state of Florida has done it since we've been in existence. The state of Colorado is starting it this month, or maybe it's September 1st, which is a great thing for my industry, because essentially they're going to start paying schools to educate preschoolers. Preschoolers typically in their world are 4 and 5-year-olds. It doesn't really hit that 2 and 3-year-old niche that we hit. But if there is an incentive to help parents pay for their child to have a early head start in life and a preschool education, I welcome that opportunity. That not only helps our franchisees, right? But it's just navigating that paperwork, because every state, why could the government be easy and just make one rule for us to follow in every state? But if I got to have 50 different rules, then we'll figure out how to navigate 50 different rules, and we'll make it work so we can make sure we can accept the government funding and all the children that come with it.
Well, no, I think that's really great. And, I had a kid, he just completed kindergarten, and going into kindergarten, because he had gone to preschool, I was not worried. I was like, at least he knows, like you said, the social functions, like he has a rough estimate of what the letters are. So I was like, we're good. But I was like, if we had stayed in COVID and he had just been with us, and his sister, who's a feral monster, she is crazy, is like, I don't think he'd know that. I would be more worried about him going into the school system not having that. So, that's definitely great that states are going to, make that more available and more enticing for parents. And the last topic I want to hit briefly is real estate. I know a lot of people who are in corporate and they're on the fence. They love what they do. They love their, their industry per se, but they also want to get out of corporate. How have you been able to weave your passion and your experience in real estate into your franchisor ownership and technically franchise owner, relationship as well?
Yeah, I love real estate. They're kind of my two hot buttons. If anybody pushes that, I'll talk for hours upon hours. Or franchising, which you hit the first one, and real estate number two. So, I went to college, one of the few colleges in Pennsylvania at the time. Again, in the '90s, I'm super old. That had a major in real estate. So I actually studied real estate, I've been in real estate since age 19. Whenever I first did my first real estate internship, so I know that's something that I've always wanted to do. I'm now teaching my kids how to play Monopoly and trying not to take advantage of them, because I can understand how to play the game.
You can't do that in this house because someone ends up flipping the board. It's usually me, too competitive. Yeah. I'm not strategic enough.
Yeah, well, I'm more worried about every once in a while there's an extra $500 bill go missing, and it ends up in my kid's side of the board somehow. I'm not quite sure. I won't call out which kid it is, but it's pretty obvious. He wants to buy more houses and hotels. It's kind of funny, so I can't really fault him. So I love real estate aspect. I've been in real estate for 25 years now. What I have always loved is the ability of what real estate does. Real estate is a great wealth builder. Here's another tidbit. There's more Americans that have become millionaires because of real estate than any other industry ever in American history. Okay.
Wow.
So that is a really, really big thing. I love entrepreneurship and I love business. Real estate is where I have, from a very young age, always invested in and continue to do so, to the point where I am now a partner in a real estate investing firm. Just like yourself, how can I choose one profession in life when I can have six, right?
Do them all.
Let's do them all. So, if any listener would ever be interested in learning more, it's a very cool niche. I'm not going to lie, that I've gotten into extremely heavily. If you ever want to visit me on LinkedIn or at Starting Point Capital, we passively invest in real estate multifamily opportunities and get mailbox of money every month.
I love it.
I have cool.
That's really cool. I already have people to send your way. I have a lot of people that always, do you know, franchising real estate? And I'm like, that is like the one niche I don't have a contact for, but now I got a contact.
Yeah, you got a contact. Well, I've been a landlord for, I don't know, 18 years or so. And I got to the point where I was just, and I still have some. I have 7 different rental units from commercial to residential. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I'm the property manager. There's only so many calls I can take from tenants about talking about, toilets, trash, and termites. I just can't do it anymore. So, investing in somebody else's property where I don't ever have to market it, have to have a phone call, and you want to send me a check every month, then I'm all in for that type of a real estate investment, and still get the depreciation, appreciation, you name it.
Listen, this is terrible. I'm gonna sync you with my husband, who's always wanted to get into real estate, and next thing you know, it's gonna be another brand. Then it's going to be my turn to have another kid. No, thank you.
Well, this isn't a brand for sale. I'm not a franchisee. I'm not a franchisor. I just have a little bit of a hobby job of real estate investing and trying to help educate others.
loophole, not a brand, not a kid.
Yeah. There you
So
go.
do you use your skills to also help the real estate aspect of Ivybrook?
I do. I'm at the point where we've hired a brilliant vice president of real estate this year to be able to assist me because I'm just getting stretched a little too thin the bigger we get. I am my one of my best qualities in life is I'm really good at hiring people smarter than me. I'm really good at it because I have a brilliant team that surrounds me and helps me every single day, from operations to marketing to real estate sales, you name it. Um, and I was doing the real estate for the last 6 years. I am still heavily involved. Before this call, I think I had 2 real estate calls this morning. So I just like it too much to not be involved. But I am not the person anymore that flies from city to city to do site approvals like I used to.
Sure. And I love that that's that's just a realistic view of it, is like you can love it, but you also have to scale and delegate. So you don't necessarily have to shut off your passion for corporate or your industry,
Right.
but just learn how to step back and let other people step in as well. Drew, we're over on time, but I have to ask you these 2 questions.
Okay.
If you had a piece of advice to give to a franchisor, what would it be? And if you had a piece of advice to give to a franchisee, what would that be?
I love those questions. Yeah, for the franchisor, it'll go back to kind of what we spent a bulk of our time talking about, making sure that you truly understand the candidate profile that you desire. Think think 10 years in advance for where you want your company to be, not the right now. And if you can't foresee being married to people, whether your franchise agreement is 5, 10, or 15 years down the road, then they're probably not the right profile to have into your system, and it's okay to say no. So I think most people know that, but I guess encourage them that it's okay, right? Because it's just going to set you up for better long-term success. That's
Sure.
my franchisor. For the franchisee, my advice would be, really trust and follow the systems and processes that your franchisor put in place. Don't be too entrepreneurial. And what I mean by that is, if you think that you can improve the systems and processes that your franchisor has done before you, you're misguided. And when you try to be too entrepreneurial and try to do things on your own, then you should just go start your own business and don't buy into somebody else's.
I love that. Well, you've heard it here first. Drew, thank you so much for coming on. You guys, you can connect with him on Drew McWilliams on LinkedIn. You can see Ivybrook and everything that he's up to there as well. And we certainly look forward to, I would say seeing you in person, but probably seeing your franchisee when I drop off all 3 of my children and I say, good luck, goodbye.
Thank you again for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by NetCertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netcertive.com.